Maryland in America. Welcome to Montgomery County Republic Club's Direct Line Show. Tonight's guest is Angela Harder, MCPS teacher from Montgomery County, Maryland. Yes, that Montgomery County, Maryland that you hear about in the news all the time, where all the wackiness happens. Our host tonight is Mark Unkefer and Jackie Saxton, the hostess with the mostest. Take it away, guys.
I think Dwight had the caffeine peanut M&Ms today. Thank you, Dwight. And thank you, Mark, as always, for hosting with me. And thank you, Angela, for joining us. So for those of you who have been checking out the Montgomery County YR's social media or were attending our anti-mask rally last weekend, you might recognize Angela as our keynote speaker. Angela has been going through quite a time with MCPS with all the mask mandates and things going on. Angela, you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. So actually last year I had applied for a medical exemption for the requirement to wear a mask, and it was approved. So they have my doctor's note on file, verified that I have a disability that prevents me from being able to wear a mask. And it really wasn't much of an issue during the school year because we were virtual. But for like the last month or so of school, I was able to go in with a face shield, and then once I would get to my classroom, I would remove it. And then if I would get within 6 feet of my students, I would put the face shield back on and then take it off. So this year, as school started last Monday, I had just been really thinking about everything that had been going on, and I really felt convicted about going along with kind of this false narrative. And I really was struggling with the issues of MCPS trying to force all of the staff and students not only to wear masks, but also to be vaccinated or to undergo weekly COVID testing. And so I decided to make a stand. And so I went in on the very first day of pre-service. So there were no other students in the building. I went in without a mask on and smiled all day long. I managed to get through about 3.5 hours of the day. No one had said anything to me throughout the day. I had hugged many of my coworkers. We talked normally. In fact, most of my coworkers were also mask-free in the teacher's lounge, chatting with me. And after about 3.5 hours, my principal sent me a message and said I needed to put a mask on. And I sent her a message back and said I am medically and religiously exempt. And she asked to speak with me in the hallway and basically said that I either needed to put on a mask or leave. And I would be placed on indefinite leave without pay. And I told her, no, thank you. I would not put on a mask. And so they sent me home. And so that was kind of the beginning of everything. I waited at home for the following day. I didn't go to work on Tuesday as I was waiting to, get something in writing saying I wasn't supposed to, I was on leave or, whatever they had told me. When I didn't get anything, I sent my principal an email in the evening and said, it's been 2 days now. I haven't gotten anything in writing. So until I have something in writing, I'm going to go ahead and show up to work and fulfill my contractual duties until I have something in writing that says otherwise. So I went back into work on Monday without a mask. And the ironic thing was that Wednesday was a virtual day for everybody. So every teacher basically was in the building without a mask. We were all in virtual Zoom meetings. And so we were allowed to be in the building in our private space without wearing masks anyway. So the only thing I did different than anybody else that day was walk from the front door to my classroom. So that was it. But as soon as I got in there, they stopped me and said I had to wear a mask or leave. And same thing. I said, okay, once you show me something in writing, I will happily go. And they came back twice. I ended up recording those videos of my principal, basically harassing me about this issue. And after the third time, she finally gave me a letter in writing sending me home. And so I went home. I was always very peaceful and respectful about it. I'm a firm believer in peaceful noncompliance and being aware of what my rights are and standing for those rights with integrity. And so that was what I did. And the media kind of got wind of it and it kind of exploded. And so a lot of people had a chance to hear what I did. And I'm really thankful that it happened that way because I think there are a lot of other teachers in MCPS that feel the same way that I do, whether they have medical or religious exemptions or not, but just felt like what was happening was wrong. that the practices that they were sending out were discriminatory or unjust or unconstitutional. And I think it was helpful for them to see someone else in MCPS and let them know you're not alone. You're not the only person that thinks that this is completely government overreach. And, I hope that more people will start to push back against, these unlawful and illegal and immoral mandates.
So is there an appeals process, or what is the next step?
Yeah, so I'm currently under investigation right now. They're having me under investigation for insubordination. So I'm in the middle of that process right now. I'm not quite sure how it will turn out. So we'll have to wait and see. I wish I had a definitive answer of how it would turn out, but I'm just waiting at this point while they conduct their investigation.
Has this, I know you have 2 little ones, has this impacted your kids at all? Are they still going to school? Have people been, harassing them?
Actually, so I have a daughter that's 7 years old and my son just turned 3. And I pulled both of them out of Montgomery County, or I pulled my daughter out of Montgomery County 2 years ago and decided to homeschool her because she had a really, really bad experience in Montgomery County public schools. And so I decided to pull her out. So she's been homeschooled. If anything, she's happy that I'm able to be home with her. I'm a single mom. And so for her, she's really excited that, I don't have to go to work anymore and I get to be at home with her. So they're happy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's a really strong juxtaposition to think about the fact that you as a teacher have recognized how negative the environment is for your own kids, that homeschooling seemed to have been the better option there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in fact, you should look, I wish I had the statistics in front of me, but the statistics about public school teachers and the amount of public school teachers that either have their students in private school or homeschooled are pretty alarming. And I think that is precisely because we see what goes on behind the scenes in the school system, and we see a lot of this stuff that happens. And it just, I'm actually working on a book right now called Toxic Teaching, where I'm talking about exactly those things, the toxic things that happen within the school system that just really cause a lot of unintentional harm, I think, to students and staff members. So yeah, it's not an easy or safe place to be, especially if you're a conservative.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back on once your book is published so that you can talk
Yeah.
more about that in depth.
Yeah, that would be my pleasure.
Mark, I can see you're thinking.
Tell me a little bit more about what it's been like in the last year working remotely, and what kind of impact has it had on the quality of education that students have been having?
I think it's been very mixed. I worked with special education students,
Mm-hmm.
and I had some students that did absolutely phenomenal, especially because I'm working with the high school level. I think they were definitely a lot more able to engage with learning online than I would think a kindergartner or a first grader would be. So for me, I saw a lot of high school students that had a lot of success with online learning, and I know a lot of them had applied to the virtual academy and wanted to be a part of that. But for a lot of students, it was not a positive experience for them. They really struggled with learning online and to the virtual academy and wanted to be a part of that.
Check.
Could you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I think for some people it was positive, and for some people it was not so positive.
Well, and I think that on its own, because I think we've known for a while, and I know I've been in a couple of classes in college where we've discussed this, is that different students learn in different ways, and that for some students they're able to engage virtually. Some students need that more human, personalized interaction. Do you think we're going to see more of a, different modeled approach in the future to schooling, where even within public schools, they're able to assess what ways students better learn and separate them into classes based off of learning style?
Absolutely. I truly hope that everything that has happened last year, that we're able to kind of take out a lot of the good that happened, because I truly do believe that there was a lot of good that came out of of this whole experience with COVID. I think that teachers were really, kind of thrown into this world of online learning and being able to really use technology in a meaningful way for students. And I think that that's been really powerful, for teachers to start incorporating technology. I know for me, I was really excited and looking forward to continuing to incorporate technology in my classroom, coming back to school. And I hope that many other teachers will do the same thing, because I think it really allows for that individual differentiation for students, that they can each kind of meet their own needs and work at their own pace, and have a little bit more independence and ownership over their learning, which is so key.
And that's actually there's a structural issue, which is that online learning can allow for, customized modules where students can learn at their own pace and try different things and listen at different things. But that but there's still obviously a really important role, obviously, for the teacher to be able to supplement and to be able to fill in the gaps and to provide that. And we've collectively kind of been forced into this environment without really being able to organize in a way to allow that to happen.
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers definitely felt that way at the start of last year. I know many of us had never used Canvas before, and it didn't really help that MCPS had just decided to use a new program called Synergy, which nobody had used before. So I think that was kind of what contributed to a little bit of a rocky start. But overall, I think we've all really learned and grown a lot as far as, online learning and being able to incorporate technology in meaningful ways for students. So I'm excited that happened, and I'm excited for that to continue for students. But you're right, teachers do play a really key part of their learning. We can't just kind of wash our hands and watch YouTube videos all day, But yeah, I do think that this whole experience has definitely transformed the way that we do education from that kind of factory model that we did before, into one that's a little bit more inclusive and can really, meet the needs of individual learners.
So switching topics a little bit, I know that your faith is something that's very important to you, having to get to know you. And I know that something that's been a huge area of debate, I would say, in public schools in recent years has been, what role can faith play, if any, in a public school setting? Particularly, I know with some science courses. I went to Quaker school, so that wasn't really an issue for where I went, but I know in public schools. What is that like, has there been an impact or any struggles for you? I know you've been a teacher for over a decade, between your faith and what isn't a mandated government curriculum.
That's a great question. Actually, this last year, I felt like I was confronted with that the most, because they actually put me to provide support in a biology class. And so providing support in a biology class as a Christian was something that I really kind of had to struggle through. But one of my best and favorite teachers told me that the mark of a good teacher is someone that is able to present the content. And at the end of the day, my students should have no idea what I actually think. And I would tell my students often, whatever your opinion is, my opinion is the opposite. And in most cases, that was actually true. But I think it's good for students to be able to kind of argue both sides. And even for me as a teacher, I should be able to kind of play that students and challenge them to think, and ask questions, and why do you think this way, and what is your evidence, and things like that. And so, with evolution, it just kind of worked out that way. I know we talked, about evolution and gender and other things like that were conflicting with my personal views. But I always made sure that I would never, impose my views on any of my students, but I try my best to ask questions to get them to really think. And, if at the end of the day, they're more solidified in their views, then great. But if they can really start to question why they think and believe what they do, I think that's really important, for all of us to be able to do, even me.
Well, I think you've worded that perfectly. And I think that, exactly the same response can be said for the way that many teachers are politicizing the content that they're teaching in schools. And instead of just letting students learn the facts as they are and form their own opinions, they're editorializing the facts and trying to shape the political minds of young students.
Absolutely.
Now, some of that, of course, is reflected in the curriculum. The Judicial Watch did the the local equivalent, the Maryland equivalent of a Freedom of Information request, and got content from a middle school I think it was at Pyle Middle School that dealt with critical race theory. And it certainly raised a lot of red flags for folks because it suggested that, well, it was very partisan, but it really also denigrated people with a different point of view from what is the sort of mainstream MCPS point of view.
Yeah.
Can you comment a little bit about, I mean, you've talked about how you taught, but can you comment a little bit about what the constraints may be, or how the curriculum may guide some of those conversations?
Yeah, well, I can give you a great example. Actually, on January 6th, when the quote unquote insurrection happened, the next day, I actually was assigned to observe a co-teacher's classroom. So every year we have to observe other teachers in the building in different content areas just to, learn and get new strategies and things. And so it just so happened I was assigned the day after that to observe a government teacher. And so the day after that happened, MCPS kind of released this mass lesson, to share with everyone. And by the grace of God, the teacher that I was observing, she's actually a Christian as well, and she's conservative. And so even though the content that they were putting out, I think it was a little bit politically biased, to say the least. And I just was watching the way that she handled, the students' responses and how they would talk about that, Republicans are racist and white supremacy and all these kinds of buzzwords that they hear all the time in the media. And I just kept thinking, if this teacher was someone else, this lesson would have gone a lot differently. But she was really careful to kind of shut down those conversations. And reminds to call people white supremacists and things like that. And so I think that was really interesting for me to just observe and to see the way that MCPS was kind of spinning that story with that political end.
So that's very interesting. So you're saying that there was like a curriculum update or a suggested discussion on January 7th?
Yeah, so the county actually, someone high up in the county prepared a lesson that all of the social studies teachers or all the government teachers were supposed to share with their students the following day. And it was basically like a script of like, this is what you will say. And it had, videos that they were supposed to watch and pictures and, reflecting on the insurrection and how they were feeling about, the invasion of the Capitol and things like that. And I wish I had it that I could quote it better,
news. I'm surprised that wasn't a bigger news story. I mean, I guess look at where we are, but was there any pushback from that? Were there any conservative students who told their parents who freaked out, or any teachers who saw this and was like, this is wrong?
Actually, the teacher that I observed, we had talked before it, and she shared with me that she was really concerned and she was really struggling with how does she present this lesson, because she didn't agree with what they were saying. But at the same time, she had this responsibility to follow the MCPS script. And I saw that as well with, I was so thankful that I didn't have to do any of the social emotional lessons this year, because I would have had major issues. They had, a whole several months actually at the beginning of last year, where they had a whole period, every like twice a week or something, that was devoted to social emotional issues. And basically they would talk about Black Lives Matter, encouraging students to get involved in protests, things like that. And I don't know. I was grateful that I didn't have to do that, but I know that there are other teachers that were in the county that really felt that conflict of, I don't want to be doing this, but at the same time, MCPS is handing us this PowerPoint and says, this is what you're going to talk about today. And this is the video you're going to show today. And actually, if any parents or anyone who's listening out there would like to know about the content that your kids are learning, there's actually a website. It's called www.whataretheylearning.com. And if you go there, you can see submissions from teachers all over the world, all over the United States, where they're sharing samples of critical race theory from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade and college. So I would highly encourage you to go on the website and look and see this. These are the things that they are indoctrinating your children with on a daily basis, literally in every class. I mean, I saw it in English classes, I saw it in math classes, I saw it in government class, in biology. I mean, even as young as first grade. It's pervasive at this point.
Now, does that website include, so it has submissions from MCPS is what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah, there are several things on there where, teachers and staff members have submitted things from MCPS. And if you are a parent and you have witnessed any kind of, critical race theory in your district, you are welcome to upload those documents and upload those homework assignments or, anything from your county. And it's a great way for parents to really see what is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I know we saw a couple of months ago now what happened in Loudoun County, all the parents who really put up, they felt very strongly against CRT, and to say the least. Yeah. And it's certainly, I don't think we're going to be too far away from some form of similar protest happening here. If it sounds like, the kind of stuff that they're putting out there is really going to be harmful to our students. And mm-hmm. if nothing else, increasing that racial divide of saying, oh, look, they're actually separate but equal out the window. There's a clear divide. That's what CRT is teaching.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I definitely do think that it creates more division than anything. And I see it as very harmful. It's a very harmful ideology. And it's sad to see how pervasive it is in public schools nowadays, which is why I have been such a big advocate for homeschooling.
So switching back to your particular situation for a second, I know when we were wrapping up our rally last weekend, somebody had found some flyers up and down Monroe Street. And this was shocking to me. For people who haven't seen this, there were flyers put up with your face on them with transcripts from a text message conversation you had. And the headline on the flyer was "Wanted for Child Endangerment," which is, absurd. There's no authority line on the flyer. We don't know who was putting these out. First of all, what was your reaction to that? I'm sure shock being the first of all, and then also, has there been any steps taken or are you considering taking steps to try and figure out who's done this and kind of get to the bottom of that? Yeah.
When I first saw it, my heart just dropped. I wanted to just tell whoever did that, like, I wish that you would know me. If you truly knew who I was, you would know that child endangerment is like the farthest thing from anything that I would ever do as a human being. I have devoted my life to protecting and advocating for children here in the United States, as well as in third world countries all over the world. And so to see someone do that was, I felt bad that someone would invest that time and energy and money in, libeling me and slandering me all over the city. But more than anything, I think it hurt that my daughter saw that. That was really, really hurtful for me. My daughter had to see these pictures of me literally on every single street pole. And she just was like, Mommy, why does everybody want you? She couldn't quite read endangerment yet, so that was good. But it just, I was sad that she had to see that.
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously I think it's obvious to anybody who has heard you speak and who is hearing you now that you are very passionate about the children that you teach, your own children, that you care as a parent. So again, and to see the kind of hate, not just from those flyers, but online as well. Mm-hmm. I've seen someone.
I try not to look.
Yeah, it's best not to look. I did see a really interesting post the other day that someone posted. It was meme-esque, but it's that, say what you will about people who are not here for the vaccine or here for the masking, but that I've never heard somebody who hasn't gotten the vaccine tell somebody that someone who did get the vaccine that they hope that they get sick and die. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hearing a lot from the I guess it would mostly be the far left of people who mm-hmm. are a little bit skeptical about the vaccine or who don't believe that these masks are effective, saying, oh, well, I hope you die.
I've had several people not just comment that, but I've had people privately messaging me exactly that I'm killing their children and that they wish that I would die, and that, you know, that the best thing for my children would be if I get COVID and die. And, you know, I've already had COVID.
Still standing.
Yeah, I've already had COVID. I don't know. It's just sad, you know, that people have so much hate, and I feel like it's just irrational. You know, like we've come to this point that we've been so collectively brainwashed that we just think that people are these walking disease, you know, bubbles, and we are just out here killing people by breathing, and it's just not true. You know, you can't make someone sick if you're not sick, you know. And so it's so sad to see that people have become so completely brainwashed by, you know, by all the media and the fear mongering that's been going on over the last year and a half. And I truly believe that if people took the time to look at the statistics from the CDC, as skewed as they may be, really looking at the data helps to dispel a lot of that fear and know that, okay, this virus does have a 99.97% recovery rate, natural recovery rate, you know, for kids. They're really not at risk of getting sick or dying from this virus. And in fact, more kids die from the flu than have died from COVID. And I don't see us taking, you know, these kind of irrational measures. And I sent a letter to a lot of people back in May, you know, expressing that fact. I think that, you know, the choices that they're making to mask kids is totally anti-science. It's anti-logic. It doesn't make any sense. And I truly believe that we are causing psychological harm to our children that we're not even going to know for decades the impact of this forced masking on all these kids is going to be.
Well,
Yeah.
it's one of the challenges of the sort of ideology of safetyism is that when it gets rolling, it tends to be very focused on, you know, the binary, is this going to help or not going to help, without any really analysis of the trade-offs that you so appropriately are articulated, that sort of it's all focused on one thing. And invariably, it doesn't really take into account all the other risks that are out there. I mean,
Right.
life is filled with risks, and
Yeah.
you know, things like having pools in backyard. I mean, there are other things that are more likely to be the source of harm than many of the things that people are focusing on.
Absolutely.
Something about this particular virus has been so politicized. We do have a parent who's in the chat who's asking, he said that his youngest just turned 5 and that they're holding him back from kindergarten so he won't be masked all day. But he's also concerned about the curriculum. So he's looking for suggestions for a homeschool curriculum. I know that you actually posted on Facebook, I think today, about homeschooling and taking questions about that.
Yes, that is a great question. Actually, I am going to be doing a homeschooling Q&A session because I think that a lot of parents are to that point where they're like, I don't want to mask my kid all day. I'm sick of all this, you know, politicized agenda that's being shoved down my kid's throat in public school. I'm ready to make some changes. And I am such a huge advocate for homeschooling. I truly believe it is the biggest game changer in education. And so actually, if I will send you guys the information when I do the Q&A so you're able to hear me talk about this. But my short answer to this question would be, I actually come from an educational philosophy called world schooling. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but world schooling is basically the perspective that all of the world is our classroom and all of the people and places in it are our teachers. So we have something to learn from everything and everyone whom we encounter in this world. And over the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time really studying child development, studying the process of learning and the way that kids learn. And children are natural learners. So I don't think that we really need to have any sort of, you know, curriculum or forced agenda that we're kind of shoving down their throats. Instead, I prefer the phrase that the child is the curriculum. So we are able to custom tailor our education to meet our individual child's needs. And so I actually do not recommend any particular curriculum, but I'm more than happy to share with you more about what that looks like when I do my Q&A probably next week.
And we'll definitely share that information out as it comes out. Mark, we need to introduce her to Lauren Arkin. They get along great.
Actually, I sent her an email. She had reached out to me. And so I have a call pending with her when she gets back. I'm really excited to talk with her.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, hey, my mom's watching. Hi, Mom. Yeah. So, I mean, that's great. And I think that that's so true. When you look at a small child, they're walking around, they're looking at everything, they're touching everything, they're very inquisitive. And I think you're spot on that every opportunity for a child is a learning opportunity that you can make out of it. And then I think another thing that came out during the pandemic, and I saw these a lot, were these learning pods, right? Groups of parents who were finding teachers who were out of work at the time and saying, hey, I have a group of 5 third graders, right? And because they knew that their children would not succeed in an online setting, or the parents were working in critical industries and had to go out to work. So they had a parent who could stay home and a teacher that they could trust who could teach them. Do you see that as something that will become almost like a homeschooling hybrid, where conservative teachers like yourself who are fed up with dealing with the teachers' unions and the liberal agendas in our curriculums could actually make some more serious money, privatizing education and forget school choice at this point, because at least in Maryland, they're not making it easy, and actually, finding groups of parents who just want unbiased education for their children and teaching them like that?
I do. I truly think that, these kind of pods or micro schools, as people are calling them, it is definitely the wave of the future. It is high time that we start really reconsidering and revamping and really asking these questions. Why do we do what we do? Why are we doing school the way that we've been doing school for the last, 100 years or whatever? And start thinking about what kind of learning is best for the world that we're going into. And it's definitely not the factory model of the 1920s or 1930s, 1940s. Businesses nowadays, they want people who can think outside the box, that aren't going to sit down and shut up and follow the rules and raise their hand to speak. Like, they want someone who's going to be a problem solver and can take ownership of their learning and not be this apathetic, passive learner, but can really, have something to contribute to the world. So I definitely think that pods and micro schools will be the wave of the future when it comes to education.
We're going to go
I would suggest, excuse me, Jay, I would say as an MCPS parent, longstanding, I'd make the observation that the expectation has been for years that the parents will do a substantial amount of the supplementing for education. So, when a son has problems, there's, different resources like Sylvan or different, after school alternatives that, how shall I say, the system very much depends on having parents go in and use that. Probably is a source of, not probably, is undoubtedly a source of some of the inequity issue, since the western part of the county in the, how shall I say, the W districts, the households are much better situated to be able to take advantage of those opportunities that don't exist that are harder to get in other parts of the county. And I'm not, forgive me, I don't think that MCPS really does a great job of acknowledging that reality as to the way their performance metrics show up from high school to high school, if that's the way you slice it.
Yeah, I mean, I was an ESOL teacher for several years, and that was one of the biggest issues, was that, when you have a student who doesn't speak English, or English is their second language, they don't have that support at home from their parents, or they do, but it's limited. And so that was a big hurdle, really helping the parents, teaching parents how to advocate for their students, and teaching parents how to get involved in their education, even though they may or may not speak the language fluently. So that was definitely a big challenge for me as an ESOL teacher. But I totally agree that, the W schools are in a little bit of a different demographic in that sense, to be able to address those issues and have, more consistent support from home.
I mean, there are some models that suggest that, relying on homework to supplement the in-class work exacerbates some of that. And it may well be something that in the future, or even right now, I mean, that schools need to address to be able to be more equitable, is that kind of not have that expectation that everything is going to be reinforced at home in a significant way.
Yeah, actually, that's something I've kind of evolved in over the years. I'm a big proponent now of not having homework, and not giving students, extra work to do at home. I think that that's one of the most respectful things that we can do for a student, is to give them the gift of time, because their life is so much bigger than what they're doing at school. Just like, when I'm at work, I don't want to come home from work and work more. I want to come home and I want to be able to spend time with my family. I want to be able to write my books and do the things that I love, and students are the exact same. And I truly believe that they deserve to have that time to invest in figuring out what they love and what they're passionate about and what they want to do.
And developmentally, particularly too, I know a big part of my upbringing was having family dinners at night, and not spending the whole evening studying for an exam, or 5-6 different classes, right? Because a part of growing and a part of maturity is emotional intelligence, as well as just book smarts. And I think another, to your point about not having that learning always reinforced at home, if we look at the way that Baltimore schools have reacted to being all remote, it wasn't something like 40% of students didn't pass last year because they're not getting that reinforcement at home. So if you keep trying the same things are not working. That's why, the three of us are going to go into business. We're going to privatize education, right? We're going to have customized education for the student. Everyone's going to succeed. It's going to be great.
Yeah. Well, and we're really in an awesome spot to be able to do that. One of the reasons why I love being a world schooler is that I'm not bound to any book. In my mind, I'm like, rather than reading about Gettysburg, I want to take a trip to Gettysburg. We can do that. Rather than reading about the Washington Monument or reading about all these other things, we can go to DC and go to these museums and see it and have these real life, real world experiences that are so much more valuable than anything that any kid could do from, doing a worksheet or reading something, in a book. But those life experiences make all the difference.
And it gives the parents the opportunity to address all those questions and concerns that they have for public school. I was hosting a panel a couple of weeks ago for another organization I'm involved in, the Maryland Republican Jewish Council, on Holocaust education. And we had a couple of students on the panel, and we had some adults who've lived in Maryland, all of whom have said the same thing, which is that they really didn't get any Holocaust education beyond reading Number the Stars in English class in elementary school. Yeah. And we live less than an hour from one of the most impactful Holocaust museums in the world. I mean, that one compared to Yad Vashem in Jerusalem, Yad Vashem is very impactful, but I've heard multiple people who said that they've had more of a reaction from the one in DC. And it's like, there are things that we're not teaching our students in public schools that parents should be concerned about. I mean, we're seeing it with the pandemic. So many students or people, grown adults, comparing everything to Nazis. Everything is the Holocaust on both sides politically. Yeah. And that comes from a serious lack of education on what actually happened in the Holocaust and things like that, right? I feel like a lot of the horrible things that people say could be mitigated by being able to form a curriculum around human decency and pieces of history that really need to be studied more in depth.
Oh yeah, for sure. My family's actually German, and when I was in 4th or 5th grade, we actually went to go visit my dad's family in Germany, and one of the things that we did on that trip was to go to a concentration camp, and it's something I will remember for the rest of my life. Being able to walk through that place and see it with my own eyes, and to know that there are students. I have students that have no idea what the Holocaust is, and it's sad. It's a huge part of our history, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about advocating for freedom and religious liberty and medical freedom, educational freedom, religious freedom. Like that's what makes the United States so great and makes us unique from all these other countries around the world. And if we don't hold tight to that, we're going to lose it.
Well, that's crazy. You're not teaching elementary schoolers. These are high schoolers who don't know anything about the Holocaust. That's wow. I mean, I know personally I'm going to be working towards legislation to go to, make it mandatory statewide having Holocaust education. So I don't know, maybe we'll loop you in on that fun project. Mark, what else you got before we?
Well, I'm just going to just go back to your interaction with MCPS and have you obviously there's a continuing proceeding, right, going on?
Yes.
Have you had any support from the union, or where are they on all of this?
So my union rep actually shared with me that he doesn't agree with me. And so I was like, if you're expressing to me that you don't agree with me, then that tells me you really don't understand what the issue is here at all.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how well he's going to be able to represent me in this matter. In fact, I talked more than he did at the meeting, but I don't expect the union to be supportive of me at all, which is ironic because on MCPS's website, it says that people who have medical disabilities are not required to wear a mask.
Right.
It's on their website. Everyone can see it. I'm not violating any policies. So I don't think that they will be supportive, but I know for a fact that there are other teachers, there are other staff members, there are bus drivers, there are secretaries, there are PPWs. I mean, there are staff members all over MCPS that do not agree what is going on, with what is going on in the county, not just the masks, but the forced, reporting of our vaccine status via Google form, which is totally not secure, forced weekly COVID testing with the PCR test, which contains ethylene oxide, which actually is a carcinogen to humans. Trying to those things. I know a lot of teachers are upset about that and starting to push back. They also have a lot of policies that I think are discriminatory, in that if there's an outbreak or if there's an exposure, only the unvaccinated staff members have to quarantine. The vaccinated staff members don't. The vaccinated staff get paid leave. The unvaccinated staff don't get paid leave. It's absolutely medical segregation. So I hope that more teachers will stand up and start to push back and say this is not okay. And we need to
it's interesting how much it is contrary to the longstanding privacy, the HIPAA rules, that was intended to protect the privacy of medical information, that seems to have been kind of blown up in this whole process that we're now talking about.
Yep.
All sorts of ways to be able to stigmatize people who aren't vaccinated or won't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, Angela, do you have anything else as we wrap up that you wanted to plug? I know we talked about your book, we've talked about your Q&A that's coming up, but anything? I know we're going to work on getting you a public page so that people can stay up to date with what you're doing. Yes. And your story. But is there anything else that you wanted to plug before you finish up?
I just would like to encourage anyone who is listening here. This only is going to continue as long as we allow it. And I hope that anyone who is listening would find it within them to be brave, and to stand up for our freedom, stand up for our liberty, be willing to say no, be willing to peacefully not comply with tyrannical orders, mandates, whatever those things may be. It will take, massive peaceful non-compliance for this to turn around. And so that is you. I can't do this by myself. So whoever is listening, I'm talking to you. It's your time to stand for freedom.
I think that's a great note to wrap up on. And I think that, Angela, you've had the opportunity to inspire a lot of people with this interview, and hopefully it will be shared out as you being given the opportunity to share your voice and your story, and not the way that the media wants to spin it on their behalf to get viewers. So thank you everybody for watching tonight. I think this one, more than any other one we've done recently, is a good one to share with your friends. Get the word out there. We need to make a change in our school system. And we will be back next week with another guest. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and just a reminder that this will be available on YouTube on our channel. So sharing it will be is easy to be able to take that link and send that forward.
Sharing is caring. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back next week.